What up, Tour de Troit? Hello, world, and welcome to another episode of Detroit ByCycle. Detroit ByCycle, all about the love, benefits, art, culture, food, and the people we meet on bikes from the Detroit area and beyond. Today is a special day, special occasion. As always, we have Mr. Bobby Brown with us.
What's up, people?
What's up, Bobby?
What's up, Bruno?
My man.
And you know Bruno's in the house as well.
I'm out here.
And today we happen to be broadcasting live in effect at a very historic location.
Man, I'm so excited.
It's really electric. We are in Detroit's oldest neighborhood,
Right, we're in Corktown, guys.
Corktown.
Or teasy for cheesy.
And we are now broadcasting from one of the most historic stages in the city. We actually want to give a good shout out and thank you to Mr. PJ of PJ's Lager House.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yes, sir.
He has invited us.
1258 Michigan Avenue, man. Come on down.
Check us out.
Check us out.
He invited us to come and sit and do our thing.
Hey, man, he was really, really incredibly gracious about that stuff, man. He was like, look, you got a voice. You want to spread the voice. I got a spot. Come on down. Let's do this thing.
So he welcomed us. So if you hear a kitchen happening or if you hear people having a good time, that's because
We here.
we're here.
In effect, we're here in effect, man.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
So excited.
Now, that table has been set.
Right.
Let us now introduce our guest for this episode. This woman is in charge, the executive director of a nonprofit doing business in the city for 18 years now and gaining. They promote healthy living with the aspect and focus of cycling and running. Currently, there are a number of events that run out of this office, and one, probably the largest one, has the largest cyclist in attendance for a single-day event in Michigan. Let's all welcome Vittoria.
Hey, put your hands
from
together.
the Tour of Detroit.
Whoop, whoop.
Hey.
Victoria,
Thank you.
thanks for
Happy to be
joining
here.
us today.
Hey, welcome to PJ's Lager House.
Yes.
PJ's one of our sponsors, so
Right
we're glad
on.
to be here.
How
we wouldn't have it any
apropos.
other way.
Right. So please, thanks for joining us again. Would you mind giving us a little bit of your 18-year history with Tour de Detroit?
Sure. So I haven't been present for the 18 years, but the Tour de Detroit actually became a nonprofit in 2011. Prior to that, we were an event that was housed out of other nonprofit organizations as our fiduciary. And that just means, they handled the money. But what we did was we were able to donate the profits to them in order to improve or start the bike lane conversation really in the city of Detroit. It was, before, and my predecessor and partner, Kelly Kavanaugh, was the one that actually started that conversation. So this is before anybody in downtown was talking about bikes as a mode of transportation. And, there was a definite need for that. And so we used the early year dollars to help kind of jumpstart that in Southwest Detroit.
Oh, in Southwest Detroit.
Yeah, so we put the first bike lanes in Southwest in the city.
No kidding.
And that's that goes the Verner Green Link.
Sure.
Which is about 15.5 miles
Wow.
through the city. And we worked through the local nonprofit, but also with our engineer partners, and basically did the study behind what you had to build to put those bike lanes in, engage the community in the process, and then put the first bike lanes in. And they were the only bike lanes in until, I would say, maybe 7 years ago.
Wow.
When they started putting them on the east side and other places.
Wow. So being a nonprofit, that just is evident off the bat of what the contribution does to help the infrastructure with cycling and transportation in general in the city.
Definitely. I think that, the cool thing about it is that at a time when the city wasn't even looking at that as a mode of transportation, the group that started it and all the the riders that were a part of it were the ones that said, hey, real people use their bikes to get to work. And there is no place that happened more at the time than in Southwest Detroit that was traditionally a one car family environment. And with multiple children, in homes and families that needed to get to different schools. And so we really felt it was a way to encourage a little bit of a safer environment for them.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's data-driven, like very
Purpose.
focused. Right.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful.
So, Tour de Troit was your first major event?
Yep. So it started this is going to be our 18th year. And as I mentioned, we became a nonprofit in 2011. But, it is Michigan's largest single-day cycling event. We've kept true to the roots of the original ride, which means, ours is not just to have a party and take people on a view of the city. It's really to show, how bikeable the city is, which is extremely bikeable.
Absolutely.
As you guys know. I don't have to tell you that.
Right.
But it also just... you can see things by running and riding a bike in the city that you can't see by driving a car.
Correct.
And so I think it gives people an opportunity to see the real communities behind. And so that's what we try to do. So we don't take you on this ultra perfect route where you don't see the real people of the city. That's not what we're about. Our goal is to show how huge the city is.
Sure.
Right.
And a lot of people think, oh, it's just this. It's so pretty downtown. We don't do that.
Right.
We take you to where real people live, and I think it really highlights the fact that people are down on the city for forever, but we're the largest metropolitan area, in the United States.
Sure.
Right.
And you should see that visually. And one of the things we told people last year at our route, because we went out to the west side, which
Yes.
you were
A
a
new
part of
route?
that.
Yes.
How'd you like the route?
I thought it was fantastic.
Did too. I love that route.
Yeah, it really showed the growing neighborhoods or the resurgence of some neighborhoods, as well as potential areas too that are available for people to look into.
For the last couple of years, I volunteered with Motorless City out of
Right.
Market, and we had a spot on the deep west.
I
I'm
know.
not from there, man. And so when bikes were coming through, and they came through, and we got to get on the route ourselves and just do some sag and make sure the chains were on and stuff.
Sure.
I went through neighborhoods that were okay, I never knew, but absolutely amazing.
Which I think is interesting because you grew up in the city.
I grew up in the city, but I grew up
On the east side.
East
So that's what I'm
Yes.
saying.
Right,
Even people
like-
from the city don't know the city.
Oh, yeah.
That's what
Correct.
I'm
'Cause it's
saying.
so big.
I'm
So large.
always amazed. There's sometimes I'll ride at night. No one will, no one wants to be on two. I'll go ride.
Right.
But I'll take Chicago. To
Just
places,
go.
to places till the numbers run out. Wow, okay, all right.
And we had such a great reception. I don't know if any of you got to go through some of the communities out there, like Grandmont Rosedale, and
yeah.
that actually we were
Shout
able
out
to
to Grandmont
engage
Rosedale.
with. It took us, I think, 5 years to get that route approved through the city.
Wow.
Because it's so hard, you guys know, to do
Sure.
routes, going over highways, state trunk roads, different neighborhoods, the width of the road. I mean, I can go on and on.
Sure.
Everything. So it took us about 5 years to get there. And the city changed so much in those 5 years. When we got there, I got so much love mail from neighborhoods saying thank you for
People
including
really
us.
enjoy it. Yeah, to be
Right.
feel
Which
I thought was
included.
awesome.
Right.
For sure, they're part of the city, and you're a part of showing others the city. So it's a reciprocating thanks, because they allow you to visit, and they appreciate bringing all the participants
Right.
through. Speaking of participants, this last year you were at 7.
We were a little
1,000?
under.
Okay.
We were more in the. We had some bad weather. I'll be honest.
Oh,
with
yeah, I
you. We
do
had
remember
about
that.
4
We
years.
were all there. Yeah, we were there.
Yeah,
Lined
bad
up.
weather, and so we have, it was great last year.
Mm-hmm.
So we went down a little bit just because September's been a hard month, but we still maintain our status. So we were just about 5,000.
Okay.
Our highest number that we ever had was the higher number, but then it rained, and it was we're not talking a couple drizzles.
No, it came through big time.
Yeah, there were events.
I mean,
It was
So,
like- it was serious.
that just gives people listening a perspective of just a hint of what it takes to put on an outfit that can manage that number of individuals. And I'm sure the effort is it's just not a 2-month out
Oh no,
program. It's something you probably start the day after.
we don't. We actually start before. So we started the process.
So
with
starting
the
before
city, yeah,
the
for
current
that
one,
event.
right? Okay.
And it's because we do want to try to get new routes out there for people. But also, there's so much construction that we have to be aware of that and get that in front of people so we know how to
Sure.
change things. And we also want to maximize the impact and get as many people as we can that want to ride it, open it to them. But we do start very early, and it's because we really want to be a safe and fun and accessible ride, and it takes time.
And it's really well organized.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed every time you go to Roosevelt Park and there's the food
Shoots.
tents and there's shoots and there's the
beer
music
tent.
and there's a beer tent
Right.
for people who do that.
With
You know,
4
the-
staff people,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
4 part-time staff people.
Wow,
Do well,
it's
Larry.
absolutely amazing. Every
Yes.
time you go down there, it's how do they pull this off?
And we're all women.
Oh.
So, I mean, we're 4 part-time
Okay.
staff
So
women.
I'm less surprised now.
That's why we get it done.
I know.
I
I'm
know.
less-
That's where I was going with
Right.
I'm less
For
surprised
sure.
now. Okay.
Yeah, it would take.
I'm
how
only
many?
78% impressed because I get it now. Yeah, it makes sense.
That's exactly true. I mean,
no.
it's a very dedicated and committed staff. They're very knowledgeable, and everything that they contribute. We have our sponsorship person is super focused and amazing. Volunteer, same thing. I handle the logistics, and we have great partners. So, I mean, we're very lucky as a team, but
Right.
we do that plus 5 other events. So,
Correct. And those other events that go throughout Tour de Troit happens, as you mentioned, in September. And your other events, if you would go through, I know the first is the MLK.
MLK ride.
Right.
January 21st.
Correct.
it's
Yeah, what was
on
that?
the Monday
Yeah.
of when MLK Day is being sponsored, and that's our free event. And you've been there before. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's
Super big fan.
sometimes, it's cold.
Yeah, it's
I
always
know.
it's always cold. I'm just but sometimes I'm more excited and sometimes a little less excited. But yeah, I'm there.
well, and it's I think those kind of events are the ones that you really feel really powerful after
Yeah.
Oh,
finishing.
no doubt.
Right,
Oh,
and you're
yeah.
bonded with the 720, whatever number of people that were there.
That showed up.
Yeah, you
Right.
feel bonded with them. I showed up, you showed up,
Right.
let's go.
Because nobody's at school, nobody's working.
Right,
Yeah.
you give them the
so-
nod.
There's
Like
no
when you see
excuse.
them on the street the next time, you give them the
Right.
nod. I know where you're at.
Yep.
you make sure you have your gear.
Right.
You,
Right,
if
right.
you just have
Be
to come prepared.
prepared.
Be
Come
prepared. Be
But I mean, it's a
prepared.
total sense of accomplishment at
Yes,
the end
it
of the
is.
day.
Oh, yes, it is.
Absolutely.
It is.
Hot chocolate.
And there's,
Yeah.
among its historical contribution, showing individuals parts of the route that he actually paraded prior to giving his "I Have a Dream" speech in Washington, in the Capitol.
Right.
I mean, the city plays a big role in that, man.
It does.
Southeast Michigan. I
Yep.
mean, he gave that speech at Grosse Pointe North, or Grosse Pointe High School first, and then at Cobo, and then finally, rubbed the edges off
Right.
and debuted it.
At the Capitol.
At the Capitol. It was amazing.
Amazing.
So
Well, that's a good point. That's what we do with all our routes. We try to curate people. I mean, I'm from the city. I grew up in Southwest Detroit. Live on the east side now, and the city is I love it, and I have always felt very upset when people had said bad things back. Now,
Sure.
apparently, there's this love event with downtown and all, and that's great. But I mean, there's more to that city than just that, and so we really try to curate and kind of on the edge of showing the realness. So you know what I'm saying? When you're going down some of these places, sometimes you see desolation, right?
Right. Well,
Sometimes
Right.
the thing is that we're not afraid of what what surrounds us, because it's still the embracement of the city. So.
Right. And that's why we're not trying to sugarcoat,
Right.
but we're also trying to make sure that our routes tell a story.
Sure.
So, a lot of them, like the one it showed to me, our route for Tour de Troit showed a lot about how, the city emerged. So we had the areas in Brightmoor, which were the houses for the Henry Ford.
Correct.
We had some of the beautiful mansions that the executives lived in. So it's like it does show. And then how far? I think it's really incredibly interesting that you can go 28 miles and never cross Woodward, and that's what we did. And so the
I
whole.
never really thought about that. That's,
Yeah, I mean,
that's
what other
incredible.
city can you do that?
Seriously.
28 miles and never cross Woodward. And we actually didn't even go anywhere near Woodward.
Right.
Not only did we not
Right.
cross it, we didn't go anywhere near it. So it's the equivalent of starting at Jefferson, going up Woodward to 15 mile almost, 14 mile, and turning
Coming back, right.
How
Nice.
many cities do you go through there?
Right.
We're in one city. I think that's huge.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
no
So-
doubt. So MLK is the first one. The second.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I get on a tangent.
It's all good.
It's all good.
Second is usually
The
the
thanks-
Punch
hey.
Punchki run.
Hold
Yes.
on, allow me to interject, man. Thanks to PJ's Lager House here at 1258. We got time to do those things.
Right. Yeah.
So take your time, girl.
Thanks again, PJ.
Yeah, thanks.
And actually, yes, the Punchki run is a second, and that also celebrates some of the history of the city because you present that to us in Hamtramck.
Correct.
And I think the highlight for that would be after completing, it's just a 5K you offer.
It is.
You provide it with a local brew and a punchki.
Yep, made from Hamtramck. And there's history there. My mom grew up in Hamtramck, and we go past my grandfather's old store. Like I said, there's little things that
Sure.
we put in there. We start the event with my uncle's favorite polka. I just throw in this stuff. But one of the things, we also made the route so that it went. I met with the city and said, what do you want us to highlight? Like what is on, what's important to you, what's developing now, what do you want us to do? And so they gave me a few things, and I ran actually Kelly ran with me about like 25 routes before we came up with that route.
Wow.
So we run them, we ride them. You can't tell a good bike ride by doing Map My Run
No, you have to
No.
get out
or
there.
Map My Ride.
no.
You got to
It's the
actually be out
streets.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Google Maps is not going to make you a route.
You
You
might
have
hit
no
the
idea where the
mileage.
glass,
Right.
or the,
No.
the flooding is
Potholes.
at,
Right.
pothole,
Yep.
du jour.
Construction.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
And so we all, that we have to change them sometime based
Absolutely.
on that
Like
days
right,
before.
Right then.
Right. So 5K, it's a certified course. We loop through the city, which is super cool because you get to see a lot more. It's not an out and back. And but again with the bikes, you guys you're one of our leads on making sure that people know where they're going.
Sure.
So we partner with our sponsor at Wheelhouse Detroit, and with a lot of our volunteers. Henry's there.
Yeah.
That helps us kind of keep the groups together to make sure they know the direction that they're going. So it still becomes like a bike important event,
Sure.
which I think is great.
Absolutely. I mean, using, not needing cars and still being able to handle the event with the people. So,
Right.
and then moving forward would be one that's,
Oh, the Rouge Athlon, which
Oh.
we just had,
okay, that's one.
which is I love that event. It's in Rouge Park.
in Rouge Park.
Our goal was, it's small. It's a duathlon. I mean, it's kind of a boutique thing, but everyone's so happy at that thing.
Sure.
I mean, it's like people come back. They've been in there, at the neighborhood, from the neighborhood, and they come back to ride. We had these two brothers that have been there every year, and they used to run cross country in the park, and came back just because of the event, and now we're
because
just
it's at the park again, too.
and we typically partner not only with the city, but we partner with a nonprofit in we call it our host community. So we partner with Friends of Rouge Park, and the idea was to provide funding to them in the end, and funding, but also recognition and a little bit of I guess, to get people there
Sure.
to see what's going on, because it
Right.
is the city's largest park now.
Get
And
it more active.
Yeah, so we do a 5K run, 10K ride, 5K run, and then we end with pizza and made to order pizza from our sponsor at Amici's Pizza,
Nice.
and beer, local
Can't
beer.
beat that.
That's a good pizza.
I know,
man.
right?
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
so good when it comes right out of the oven.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's
man.
awesome.
So, yeah, all right, I can see that.
Okay,
5K for
so
that.
now we're on to our fourth event, which is just
Coming
around
up.
the corner. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's Tour de East Side.
Okay.
Formerly was Cycle into Spring.
Yeah.
And this is our eighth year.
Eighth year.
Eighth year of doing the event. Partner with Creekside in Northtown on that, and we changed our location of the start last year to AB Ford Park, which is a little bit deeper on the east side. And the reason for that was because there's a lot of development going on in the Jeff Chalmers business community.
Oh, yeah.
And we really wanted to highlight the new businesses going in there. And the best way to do that was to move the park down. And then it also helped us kind of get around some of the construction that was going
Sure.
on over there. So that one is about 20 miles. It goes up to
Is it
straight east.
8 mile?
Almost to 8 Mile.
Almost
It's
8
actually, we
Mile.
turn on Outer
Outer
Drive,
Drive,
and then, but we have a rest stop at the old Lipke Recreation Center. And then we have partners from the community there that are doing, they're the Northtown community that gives out all of the food there, which is great. And they talk about their community, which I always love. And then we go through the cemetery out there. We end up going through Jeff Chalmers, the airport area, like Outer Drive, East English Village,
Yep.
the Marina District, and through the Houston Whittier area. and more.
Is that still part of the Connor Creek Greenway as well?
It is.
Yes.
We used
okay.
to, so old school, we used to go through the actual path, but we got too big to do that,
Yeah.
so we had to turn off.
Yep.
And we've given to date $20,000 to that
Oh, wow.
path. And the other events like Punchki, we've given. I think this year we'll be at about $60,000 to a park renovation there.
Park renovation, and wasn't there contribution to fix-it stations as well?
We did that as well, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We put 5 of them throughout the area with a partnership with Wheelhouse, and then we got a grant through LMB to
League
do
of
that.
Michigan Bicyclists, yes.
Yeah, so we put everything in the main areas where, like by the football stadium, in front of businesses that we saw a lot of bicycles, and it was actually in partnership with the city of Hamtramck and figuring out what
Nice.
those locations were.
So that's just, another point to prove that, your contribution with attending these events are actually helping the infrastructure for you to be able to use if you're just out riding, doing your own thing without the group or a major event going on.
Right.
Okay, so now we're through into June.
Then we do nothing because all we do is plan for the Tour de Troit.
Right. Okay, so then you have a little reprieve until your largest event for the year, which is Tour
Yeah,
de
it's
Troit.
not a reprieve. But yeah, we do. I've submitted 3 routes so far to the city for
wow.
just to kind of tweaking down where we're going to go. And we're pretty confident that we're heading out to the Palmer Park area this year. So we're doing, northwest Detroit, again, not crossing Woodward due to construction and, people get angry, oh, you're not on Belle Isle, but you can't go on Belle Isle right now.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
because of the
right.
track.
Too much construction.
Yep.
Well, is that just a track? They're doing
They're doing a lot
that
of-
construction over the bridge, and
Yep.
that's going to
Okay.
be past the date of our event. It's just not safe. Even though it's open for cars, it's too narrow for bikes. So hopefully we'll get back there next year. But this route's super cool. I think even Henry Ford would approve.
Nice.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
should give you a preliminary
I'd be
route.
happy to see
I
it.
should do
I was
that.
actually surprised on the last year's tour ride, so
Oh, so maybe you don't want to know.
I think it was exciting to be see something new. So yeah, no, I'll be there.
okay.
So yeah,
But it's a
for
cool
sure.
route. We go through LaSalle Gardens, which I think is just.
It's so beautiful over there.
I'm almost afraid to bring
It's
people
a-
through it because I'm like, don't ruin LaSalle
Yes,
Gardens.
it's a hidden gem.
It is.
Don't go over there.
It
But
is
no, it
beautiful.
is. Where it sits, it's like it's not on the major thoroughfares, so you have to take a detour to even get into that area to notice, how beautiful some of the homes are.
It's really isolated. It's like an island right now.
Yes, it is.
It's
yes,
beautiful.
it is. I love riding through there.
And then we go like Boston Edison, University area, Palmer Woods. We have a rest stop in Palmer
Oh,
Woods, and then we
nice.
head
Okay.
back. It's a little shorter this year, but for cyclists, you'll know that it's really hard to cross Woodward at that point.
Sure.
Yeah.
So instead of dealing with that, and then there's so much construction downtown, we decided to come up with the route that didn't do that and stayed, we go through Highland Park a little bit this time.
Oh,
Awesome.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, with this major event, and only 4 part-time employees, you require the effort of a lot of volunteers.
Very much.
Why don't you give us a little breakdown on, how much you need us as people for volunteering, and then some of the bennies that we get for being a volunteer.
I feel like I would never do justice for how much we need you, so I apologize in advance on that one. You're right, 4 people. I mean, part-time. There's no way that 4 people can do all the work. And we have a few hundred volunteers on the route. Most importantly is, everyone's important. But, I mean, when you're on the street, the cyclists and the sweepers and the SAG people, I mean, they keep everyone safe.
And
We
moving,
have
yep.
police officers, and it's barricaded. But for anybody who rides in the city, that's not really enough.
No.
Right, and there's
And-
those mechanical issues that come up.
Yeah.
People are like, "Oh, my chain." You're like, "All right, let's."
Well, but
let's
also
fix-
just keeping them safe on the street itself
Yeah.
and making sure they know where they're going and making
Sure.
sure. And then we have our sponsors with, in addition to those that not only have people on the street for us, but also have their little, like, I don't know what we call them, like pods or something where
Stations,
you have a
right,
little bit
where-
more detailed work
Right.
for problems.
Right, there's bike stands and people
Yeah.
get more complicated in repairs.
And that was an awesome addition that actually when Kelly was ride director, we made when we went to the 5 borough ride and saw that in New York and thought we could do that. And I think it was a great addition because it's just with these roads, it's sometimes hard on your bikes. And let's be honest, nobody brings their own stuff.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah,
So
nobody's bringing their own tube.
No pedals.
they should.
No pedals.
They should.
No, there's no question, man. You don't really. All right, so that gets us to a term that we're going to use. Hen, do you want to put them up on this?
All the
Riding dirty.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
We did this once before. But
Once
let's go over this
before.
again, man. Like if you don't have it,
right. If you don't know how to work on your bike, it's a bonus if you at least have your own tube, because you're bound to have someone riding next to you that can help you. So
Yeah.
don't ride.
don't ride dirty.
Don't
you
ride
always
dirty.
have to
Have your tube.
your
Right.
tube.
Yeah.
That's a
on you.
huge one, too.
When
Right,
you buy
like
the
just
bike,
have
buy
your-
some tubes.
Right.
Right.
It's your bike. Have your tube.
We did have a person angry one. I hope that this person's not listening. But had
We're
like a
not.
really particularly fancy tire and needed a very specific tube
Of course.
and was angry we didn't have that
course.
tube. And it was like I would have had special order that tube for you.
No.
Right.
was
No.
Fred, at any retail store, you got to order your tube,
Yeah,
but you
so
can't bring
but I
one
mean,
yourself.
back to the volunteer thing.
Sure.
It is incredible. We couldn't do anything without them at all, and that's why we really try to treat you guys well. I hope we could do
No
better.
doubt.
We're a nonprofit, but we try to have a party at the end of the year celebrating everything that you do for all of the events, and there's no way people could do these things without. without
there's
you. There's no way.
The parties are large because there's a large contingency of
Yeah.
volunteers. I mean, you call out for help from every direction, right? From bike shops, from medics to people that hand out things for
Caterers.
Yeah, for the
Food,
catering, for the
like,
food
all that stuff.
service.
It's amazing.
It's
what you
a
pull
big
off.
ordeal.
Like, it's
So we are really particular about like the after party as well. I mentioned PJ helps us. He does he coordinates with entertainment for us. But in our effort to make it very Detroit centric, we do use local vendors. We've been approached several times by national chains and different people who want to supply, food, whatever. And we don't do that because we feel very firmly in supporting the local businesses in the community. So we order all of our tamales, rice and beans from Honeybee. We order, we use ganellas for our subs. And
All
again,
local.
we don't ask for it for free because that's not really what the community is about. So a lot of events just get that stuff for free. We believe in giving the dollar back to the community, and what they do for us, though, is give it to us at cost. So it doesn't cost them anything, but they're not getting a profit, so they're actually sponsors of ours, and then we're able to keep that money in the system,
Nice.
which
And in the city.
raises the cost of our event, quite frankly, but it's also part of our mission.
Sure.
So, but we do have, each food tent requires about 50 volunteers
For
to
each.
manage appropriately. And then the beer tents, everybody wants to do the beer tent. So, but it only
course.
requires about 20 people in each one.
Right.
But
So this is all to supply the 5,000+ riders that you have
coming back in.
coming back in from after doing the route.
And then we have marshals, the people cleaning up after, the people setting up. It takes us 3 days in advance to set up, load the trucks.
All the equipment.
There's no way 4 people
stages,
could do any
sure.
of that.
And now, is Roosevelt Park pretty much the home base and will
Interesting question.
always be?
We hope so. I mean, it's definitely a really good space because it allows us to go in any direction in the
Sure.
city without being too, using too much
Predetermined.
energy to
Right.
get
Yeah.
there, which is a really good, and it's large enough to handle us. There's no other park really in the area that would allow us to do that without being too much of an obstruction to the daily life of the citizens. Because
Sure.
we couldn't use Clark Park or Patton Park because they have soccer those days.
Oh, wow, okay.
Couldn't use. So we have to be very conscious of all that, which I think people don't realize that you have to do. But we did originally start in the center of the city when we had like 50 riders, and it moved after 2 or 3 years to Roosevelt Park. We definitely hope to stay. I mean,
Awesome.
it's the perfect venue for
The
us.
backdrop is phenomenal
yeah.
too.
Right.
Though.
It's iconic. It's
Yeah.
become kind of our symbol. I mean, that's what our
yeah,
t-shirts
it's on the
been.
volunteer shirts.
Yeah.
We're speaking of the Michigan train station. For those that don't know,
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, we hope to stay.
Fantastic. Victoria, is there anything else that you want to mention that you were involved with?
Your favorite ride.
We
One more
forgot
ride.
to
One
mention
more ride.
the one more ride.
Yes.
My goodness, I'm jumping the gun.
It's all good.
So you do have one more
We
that the Office of Tour de Troit plans, and that is Bike the Bridge. Explain a little bit what that's all about.
So Bike the Bridge is the only time in modern time that you can cross over the bridge on a bike, and that's the Ambassador Bridge. Hopefully, new bridge will allow bike
to your
transportation
house,
to go
sure.
over and back, but that just makes the opportunity for a second cool event, but or a different event. But the Bike the Bridge, we inherited the ride from a group of planners and volunteers that no longer wanted to do it about 5 or 6 years ago. And we kind of changed it up a little bit in our own style, but we kept the idea of going from starting in Windsor one year and then the next year in the United States and Windsor in the United States. So this year we're starting in the U.S. We start at Clark Park, and that's in October 17th. And it's the thing, it is a cool event.
It
I mean,
is.
it's the best view of the city
Oh my
It is.
goodness.
out there. And then that's the only hill. I mean, it's higher
That's
than the
largest
Renaissance
incline,
Center.
right?
Yes.
I mean, it's the largest incline that you could possibly find. You get to travel to another country.
International border.
And then we take you for a cool ride around whatever that host country is. This year we'll be going through Southwest and a little bit of downtown, and then end at Clark Park for food and just hanging out.
Awesome. Yeah, that's that will come up again in this
For
episode.
sure.
But yeah, that will be the last Tour de Troit event that you do each year. So
We gear up to start again.
right, and then next thing you know, back to MLK. So that's a number of events that a small staff, but a large volunteer army has to accomplish every year. So it's just an amazing task.
Yeah,
that you
true,
accomplish.
and true to name, like
Yeah, oh yeah,
you
for
really
sure.
get to tour Detroit with all of the venues that you all start from and the neighborhoods that you go through. It's amazing, it's amazing.
By bike or by feet.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you're gonna see something you never saw. Like you're gonna absolutely
Definitely.
be like,
Definitely.
Seriously. And Bobby, you want to give us the lowdown?
Yeah. This week for three things, we have what's going to be our favorite annual ride. Since we're talking to Tour de Detroit and annual rides, we're gonna give you ours. Henry, you go ahead and start it off.
All right.
for
Well,
us.
yeah, I'll definitely start because we mentioned it already. And it was the last Tour de Detroit event of the year. It is Bike the Bridge. And, I love it for all the reasons mentioned, as well as going over to Canada. It's cool if you've never ridden over there because it's an effort if you want to ride to get your bike over there. You have to load your car up with the bike, go through the tunnel or over the bridge, take your bike off, unload, and then you finally get to ride. Well, this event, it's a whole package. You can start from your home country, go across the bridge, short tour around the city, and come back. So being an international crossing, I'm not sure there are really that many sanctioned international crossed bike rides out there, to be honest.
I think we are the only one.
Yeah.
They might do one in Niagara Falls, but I don't think they do.
Okay. So there's another.
At least over a bridge.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Right. There's
I don't
another
think
reason
so.
for it to be my favorite. It's the only one in the country.
Yeah.
Bike to Bridge.
All right, Bruno, what you got for us?
all right. I'm gonna stay in the same vein and with the Tour de Detroit joints. But my favorite ride, to be honest, is the MLK ride, for a number of reasons. One, I mean, as a social activist, I see myself in that same vein. I'm trying to do what's best for all people, not my people. I enjoy that, but I also enjoy the timing of it. It's in the middle of January.
Dead of
If
winter.
you're not cut for that, you're not showing up.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
only like the realists are gonna show up on that day and like get some hot chocolate at
Right.
the end.
Mhm.
Like
Yes.
that's what you get. Like
Yep.
you're getting hot chocolate at the end, and you're gonna be like, yes, I rode with you. I rode with you. And these cats, you'll see them like 2-3 years later, and you just nod at them. Give them that like, yeah.
It was cold that
Right,
day.
it was cold.
cold.
I
We remember.
I know, I
Oh,
know
we
you.
remember.
I know you know that cold. Yeah, so that's my joint, man. It's the MLK ride. So
MLK.
thank you very much.
Thank you. That's great.
For myself, I definitely have been on both of those, Bike the Bridge and MLK. But I'm going to pick University of Detroit Mercy does a night ride at the beginning of their school year. Starts roughly close to midnight, and they start on their main campus. They ride through the city. They hit all their campuses. They hit the dental school. They hit the law school downtown.
Yep.
You get to stop at the Coney, which
Yep,
is
Lafayette
always
or American.
pick your poison. And it's it's late at night. They have their own police escort. It's a pretty cool ride,
See all the lights.
You
Everybody
get to see all the lights.
yeah,
You know, the bike clubs come out lit up. You know, make sure you bring your lights. Make sure you bring a helmet too. We've seen accidents.
Yeah.
You know, people not paying attention, but it is what it is. But it's a pretty cool event that UDM definitely puts on throughout the city. I love the night light ride that they have.
Vittoria, would you happen to have a favorite?
God, that's a hard one.
I know.
Because, you know, the sad thing is that for our rides, I'm no longer able to ride them like I used to.
Sure.
So I have only the aspect of riding them as making the routes, which I ride them at many times a year. And quite honestly, last year's route was my favorite in a long time. I was
Last
really
year's Tour de
inspired
Troit
about
route.
it. Yeah, for
Sure.
Tour de Troit. I just felt that we did a very good job on showing what our mission and message was, and did well to the city. But I kind of might say that this year's route's better.
Oh.
Not better, but I like it a lot too.
Okay.
It's hard because they're all so good.
Sure.
I think as far as planning in that, you know, I ride my way. I don't do a lot of organized rides in the city, just from timing, but I do ride a lot in the city. And I would say that my travel to the office is kind of my favorite.
Okay.
But I would definitely planning the routes and being able to ride them, you know, 10, 12 times before anybody sees them.
Sure.
And like go through and take pictures of them and, you know, really try to bring the story to life is kind of my favorite part about all of it.
Nice. Fantastic.
All right, y'all, that's our 3 things for this week's show. Favorite annual ride. If you all have, you know, an annual ride that you love, whether it's any of the Tour Detroit offerings or anybody else, even if it's out of state or out of the city, please let us know. You know where y'all can reach us. Detroit ByCycle, ByCycle, y'all. On the Instagrams, leave us a message on Facebook, email, Gmail. We're out there. And we have a new home, PJ's Lager House.
Yeah.
PJ's Lager
Shout
House.
out to
y'all.
PJ's.
Shout out to
Thank you,
PJ.
sir.
Thank you so much. Henry?
All right, Vittoria, before we let you go, as all of our studio guests, we have our 5-question hot seat.
Oh, goodness.
And this just lets people get to know you a little bit better.
I'm not good under pressure. Is that one of the questions?
No pressure.
The first question is, describe your first bike.
Oh, it was awesome. It was a Schwinn 10-speed, the first one I loved, 10-speed turquoise. And the kid down the street ran into it with his big wheel and ruined it.
Oh.
I loved
Another
it.
shout out. Schwinn is pretty popular for a lot of our guests.
Yes,
getting their,
yes.
Their first bike. All right. I think we kind of alluded to this before, and you could just repeat yourself, but what's your favorite ride? Like, it may not even be a destination or
Ride
an
through the
event.
city or...
It could
Ride,
be
period. Whether you've been overseas,
overseas,
you know.
different.
You know, I really enjoyed the 5-borough ride. We've
in
ridden
New
it a
York.
couple of times, and you don't get that. I think the reason I enjoyed it so much was because it was amazing to see how the city of New York could embrace, you know, so many. I mean, we're talking, 55,000 cyclists?
Yes.
And sometimes in our city, we complain when we see 4. And I'm like, God, this is 5 boroughs.
Right.
And every single,
40
how many
miles.
officers
Yeah.
completely close down the streets. And then the added benefit of, we've talked about this before, the beauty of seeing a city
On two
on a
wheels,
bike is
yep.
completely different than riding a car. And I've frankly not been to some of those places before.
Sure.
You know, I've been in Manhattan, and I haven't been to Queens except on that ride. And so I've never been to Staten Island until I went on that ride.
Okay.
So and the bridges, I mean, the vistas, and I'm going on about it, but one of the things I liked about it too is that I'm terrified of heights. And it made me
You
face
have to,
that.
Yeah, you have to
and
push
do
through it.
So, you know, it challenged me in that regard.
The 5 Boroughs is a great ride. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good time. So, have you always been a cyclist, or was there at one point in your life where you didn't even look at a bike, and then you picked it back up?
You know,
So that's
where you're like childhood kind of like in cars.
Yeah, everyone says
commingled.
that happens. I mean,
Yeah.
it did sort of happen, but I never stopped riding a bike. I just started riding different bikes, if that makes
Okay,
sense.
sure.
So
Oh, yeah.
in college, I rode to work. But then in my senior year and then through grad school, I was really into mountain biking. And so I went all over the country, doing that. And that was really
Nice.
amazing. And I still have that's my second favorite bike. It's my Bridgestone MB3.
Nice.
I still have, and
Wow.
I'm never getting shocks or anything put on it, which is probably why I have bad shoulder. But really looking forward. It got refurbished this year, so I'm looking
cool.
forward to riding it this year. I'm really excited about that. And then I just kind of rode in the neighborhood again for a little bit, so a little lazy riding. And then I've really tried to step up the riding to work at least a few times a week.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of two wheels.
Sure.
You know,
Yep.
like you're on two.
What would be your favorite Detroit flavor?
It can be music.
It could
food.
be food.
To be honest, the first thing that came to mind is Mott's Hamburgers.
Okay.
Shout out to Mott's.
I know it's
Southwest.
terrible, but
Let
oh
'em know.
God,
Yeah.
I've
Let 'em
been
know.
going there since I was
Yes.
before the current owner owned it.
Oh.
So I'm not going to say how old I am, but I've been going there for a lot of years. And my first memory of being there was when I was 6.
So you got
So-
an intersection for our listeners?
Of course, Green and Fort Street.
There you go. Let
There
them
you
know.
go.
Let them know.
Cash
Shout out to
only.
Mott's.
Cash
Cash only.
only.
Do not walk in there
Don't-
dirty.
Yeah.
Do not
Don't bring
walk
your
in there
debit.
dirty.
No.
And get the double.
Oh.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
A recommendation for you.
Seriously, stick with the original menu.
Yeah.
Sure.
Don't veer.
Shout out to
Nice.
Mott's. I can second that for sure.
All right. And our last question for you would be, what would be one wish that you have for Detroit?
That it would take time in its growth and actually plan. We've been a city that's been very excited about people noticing us. And we're, like the popular girl that just wants the first smile. We just need
I don't
to.
know anything about that.
No, I really think that we're at a critical state and we should really take time to plan. We have a very rare opportunity to see how other cities have tried different things and have failed. And for us to continue in that same failing pattern is heartbreaking.
Sure.
So I really think we need to just step down for a minute, look, study, and then instead of just saying yes to everything, say yes to what's right for us.
The people.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
Victoria, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for
Spending
having
some
me.
time with us here at Detroit ByCycle. All of our listeners, you want to shout out any websites or anything we can get info?
Yep, tourdetroit.org for sure. And register now for that June 1st event. There will be registration on site if you want to wait to see what the weather is, but it's an upcharge. And then the other thing is we do give a discount to people in the 48214 zip code since we're in
Awesome.
their communities.
Nice,
So hopefully
nice.
some of you will come.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
Yeah.
Also, they can go to tourdetroit.org for volunteer info and as well as donations if they
Correct.
see need that fulfillment.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for taking the time out and hanging out with us.
Of course, it was awesome.
We really appreciate
Yes,
you,
thank you.
enlightening our listeners, and I know I was enlightened.
Oh,
as well
same
to
here,
some of the
same
information,
here.
So
I get smarter every episode.
every episode,
man.
right?
That's awesome.
Mhm. That's great. Thank you once again. As you all know, this is Detroit ByCycle. We are about the love, benefit, art, culture, food, PJs
for sure.
and the people we meet on bikes from the Detroit area and beyond. Thanks, PJ. Appreciate you.